NFL executive predictions for 2025. And in it, he writes, this one's wild. But Tyreek Hill's displeasure in Miami is out there after his Week 18 comments, and the Patriots hope to be on the brink of contention soon enough under new coach Mike Vrabel. In-division trades are not as rare as they were a decade ago. It's largely about which team offers the best value. Quote, the Patriots are desperate. They need a guy, that alpha that can be friendly for Drake Maye, a veteran NFC personnel man said. And there's a higher chance of draft picks Miami would receive in a trade being higher than with a contender. This is assuming the Patriots can't satisfy those needs via free agency with a player like Tee Higgins, but New England hasn't been a free agent destination for elite pass catchers in recent years.
Huh. You want Tee Higgins or you want Tyreek Hill?
I'll take Tyreek Hill.
I take Tyreek Hill.
Give me Tee Higgins.
Wow. Here's your problem.
I don't got a problem.
No, your problem. Mike's problem. And I'd say Mike is Mike Vrabel. You want to take away some of the egos, right?
Entitlement?
Entitlement. You want to earn the right to be there. He walks in your locker room, he's the highest paid player in your team automatically. What message does that send to your culture, this new culture you're trying to establish? Because he's a volatile player.
Yeah, I think that's a safe word to use. He's a little bit volatile.
He's a dangerous player.
You've got a young quarterback.
Yeah, but
that's going to be being asked and demanded that he throw the ball to one particular player on a very regular basis.
We just had a young quarterback with a volatile wide receiver room. The only difference with this receiver room would be that there's actually talent in the receiver room.
He already had a guy that said he's got the best hands in the league.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to say no to Jalen Polk and Javon Baker than it is to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. So Tee Higgins over Tyreek Hill. Explain the reasoning.
Trade comp. One guy costs money. The other one costs money and picks. Boom. Done. End of story. Tyreek Hill might still be the more talented guy, but I would say he's probably not as firmly in his prime the way Tee Higgins is. I think Tee Higgins is 27. Tyreek Hill, to me, is not close to the end. I don't even want to suggest that. He's an electric player.
Tee Higgins 26. 26 years
Higgins
old.
Higgins is 26. Yeah. He would change the way defenses have to play you. He would open up your run game just by being on the field. And listen, I don't worry about Drake Maye. I think Drake Maye's a pretty confident guy himself. I just am wondering if you want to introduce that to your locker room.
Right.
That to me is a real question. And listen, Tee Higgins would be probably be your most highest paid guy as soon as he steps into the building too. I just don't think he comes with the baggage that Tyreek Hill does.
You'd already have to have that strong room. It's like when you went and got Randy because you already had the strong room here. That we can handle that. There have been other players here that they brought in, high character, low character guys that it'll work here.
Do Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels though provide that a little bit more than this past year's coaching staff?
Yes,
in terms of being
you do, but the dude's going to think he's the man. Second he walks in here too. They're always that one exception to the rule. Every team's got one. Like Miami's got one with him. The Chiefs had one with him. Chiefs have still gone on and still won without him. They replaced him. Everybody's replaceable, but when you're desperate, you'll reach for a guy like that. There's always that one exception to the rule.
So you're giving up a first-round pick. How do you feel about it now?
No.
I mean, in theory, it's nice to think about, Hill versus Higgins, yada, yada, yada. It's going to cost you. I don't know if it's a first-rounder. Say it's even a second-rounder.
I think based on what Miami had to give up to get him, and he's only been there a short while, it's going to cost you a one, at least. 1 and a 2, probably.
I'm not going to give up the 4th overall pick in the draft. A future first, though, if you could bring him in, yes, I would do that.
You have so many holes.
You just need a number one. You need a number one receiver. My fear right now, and the more you read about the Tee Higgins thing, do you think he's actually going to shake loose from Cincinnati? Doesn't feel like it's trending in the right direction from a New England perspective, at least with this.
No, and I've talked to some people in Cincinnati, and they feel like there's a decent chance that he ends up staying, and they just try to build that team the way the Dolphins have built, quite frankly, which is highly paid quarterback, 2 highly paid receivers, and you just try to outscore everybody.
Yep.
Philly's got a lot more talent spread out throughout the roster, but 2 very highly paid receivers, highly paid quarterback. Like, you can do it. Does Cincinnati want to do it? Because they're Cincinnati, and generally speaking, they don't hand out that kind of dough.
See, that's the one thing what hurts, too, though. Like, and I know Philly's paying him a lot. I think he's making too much money for what he does. Because you're seeing all these other quarterbacks like Daniels and some of the young guys like, or Burrow. They carry their teams. I don't think Hurts can carry his team But it's good for what they do, and they just don't want to. They don't want to buck that right now.
I mean, is he a top 5 quarterback in terms of pay right now?
He was a top 2 guy a year ago. Oh yeah.
Average per year. He's actually down the list a little bit. Lamar, Herbert, Goff, Tua, Burrow, Love, Lawrence, and Prescott are all ahead of him.
Some of those contracts are tough.
Yeah. Like 4 of those just got redone this year.
$51 million per year for Jalen Hurts.
That's pretty good. Pretty good for
But
Jalen
he's
Hurts.
kind of in that range of quarterbacks. I mean, he's being paid like a fringe top 10 quarterback, and that's kind of what he is. That's just what it costs if you're a veteran guy.
To Zoe's point, to me, Hurts kind of falls in the line with Tua, where you're surrounding him with weapons that elevate his play versus the classic Tom Brady, which is he's going to elevate the players around him when you talk about those type of quarterbacks.
How do you feel about Cooper Kupp, who's talking recently about how he might not be back in L.A.? Cooper Kupp versus...
I love him here.
How about Cooper Kupp versus Tyreek Hill? Who are you choosing there?
I mean, Kupp from a team building standpoint, Hill from a dynamic standpoint.
So who are you taking?
Kupp.
There you go. I'm with you. McCone?
I'm taking Tyreek Hill still. I know that you have to give up compensation, but Tyreek Hill to me is such a game changer when he's on the field. Cooper Kupp, obviously a tremendous receiver as well, but there's injury concerns there too with
but you
Cooper
get Cooper
Kupp.
Kupp, you still got your first and your second round picks that you're going to be able to use.
Are they mutually exclusive is the question too, right? You have so much cap space right now. Could you go out and acquire a Tyreek Hill through trade and then bring in a Cooper Kupp or bring in even a Chris Godwin or someone like that to bring in and now totally revamp the receiver room? I would love like a 2007 type offseason where you completely reshape your wide receiver room. As much as we're banking on that year 2 leap for Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, yeah, it would be nice to bring in Randy Moss, Wes Welker, and Dante Stallworth, and
Gaffney.
now you're off and running. Yeah,
I like it, McCone. Aggressive.
think big, baby.
You're an aggressive front office guy right now. I like that. Pie in the sky stuff. Listen, they have the resources to do it, to your point. And you've got a young quarterback who's on the cheap right now, and that will only last so long, right? You've got 2-3 years after this one where he's on a relatively inexpensive contract. And so try to make the most of it while you can.
I just think when it comes to this offseason, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I hope that it's not a situation where you kind of get lulled into sleep with the same thing when you saw with Bill O'Brien, where it felt like that offseason, the big acquisition was Bill O'Brien coming back as the offensive coordinator, and that was going to be the cure-all for all the issues that took place on the offensive side of the ball. And obviously, Mac Jones, not the quarterback that Drake May is, or at least we hope that that's the case, right? But like, you also have to upgrade the talent a tremendous amount on the offensive side. Josh McDaniels coming in is not going to be the cure-all, and all of a sudden now you have a top 10 offense in the league. That's not it. You're going to have to go and make some aggressive moves here if you're Elliott Wolf and Mike Vrabel.
Okay.
No doubt. I look at it too. I know I'm saying, hey, if you can only spend money for one guy, whether it's Higgins or Kupp, versus get a guy in a trade where you have to give up something significant, I'd prefer just giving up the money. It's easy to say that. It's another thing to convince guys that have options to come to Foxborough, where it has just not been a destination, period, point blank. And maybe it's more of a destination now because Vrabel's here, McDaniels is here. You like the experience factor for both of those guys, and you like the young quarterback. So that should help you. I just don't know how much it helps you. Whereas a trade,
kind of forcing their hand.
Yeah, those guys don't usually have a say.
Yeah.
And maybe Tyreek Hill would say, I'm not going to play that. He's that volatile, to use Zoe's word, that he would just say, I'm going to sit out if you trade me up to the Northeast. I'm not playing up there. You know how cold it is? 6 degrees on January 22nd. No, thank you. But that would be one reason why the trade option might in some ways actually be the more realistic one, is you're not asking a guy to choose your spot.
Number one receiver, the biggest need for you, Zoe, this offseason for the Patriots?
No. Starting left tackle. Biggest offensive need. Biggest need offensively.
I think starting left tackle and starting right tackle might be your top.
That might be the receiver might be 3. I'm with Phil. It's 1-2. You get 2 bookends. You could get the Chris Hogans of the world out there, like you heard from today, and throw balls to him. Yeah.
That's why I say when we were talking about Abdul Carter a little bit earlier, tell me what they did in free agency. If they were able to get Ronnie Stanley and somebody else to play left and right tackle, then sure, yeah, go get Abdul Carter. If you whiff in free agency on any tackle that is capable of actually playing at a starting caliber sort of level, then you might have to think about either taking the tackle just at 4 overall,
or trading back,
and seeing what tackles are available to you in the middle of the first round. But That to me is where your draft strategy gets shaken up, is how well did it go for you in free agency? Because if it went crappy, you're going to be kind of up a creek when it comes to those critical spots on the offensive line.
Do you think it's going to be the offensive line with Josh McDaniels comes in here, Zoe, and that's the number one thing that he's going to look to address?
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%. He won't be able to run an offense without an offensive line. And getting the right offensive line coach. He and Vrabel need to get on that. That's your first hire offensively.
That to me might be like the biggest hire after offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Is offensive line.
Isn't it
more
funny?
so than defensive coordinator.
Isn't it funny how quick Peters got picked up? Scott Peters?
He's
right
he
to
is
Cincinnati.
He is respected.
Very well-respected
Very
guy.
well-respected guy.
Because of his time with Bill Callahan and because he's thought to be very technically sound. Even before he came to New England, the question was, I don't know how he's going to scheme up the run game, because a lot of times offensive line coaches have a huge say in how your run game looks. But in terms of the technical aspects of offensive line play, hand placement, angles, your footwork in pass protection, all of those things, he's apparently, I'm not going to act like I'm an expert, but he's apparently pretty high end.
Well, I also think it's hard to evaluate him based on the offensive line that he was handed last year as well. Like, you can say the offensive line didn't perform well, but when you don't have talent on the offensive line and you throw like me and you, Phil, out there and say, go coach him up, I'm not sure how you can evaluate that with the issues that they had from a talent perspective last year.
No doubt.
Hey, if you like that clip, check out more videos from Zolak and Bertrand right here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.